friends, it's that time again. It's time for some Christmas treats. Whether you like savory or sweet, both are so good. And I've got 3 of our family's favorite Christmas treats for you today. This video is in collab with Valerie Hargett and Sammy from Managin the Mays, and I will list their channel and the playlist down below so you can go show them some love. So come on along, let's get to making 3 of our family's favorite Christmas treats. Your family will absolutely love. So come on, let's get to cooking. And for the first Christmas goodie, we are going to be doing the sausage balls. And I don't do it by the normal recipe. And I have evolved even since this one. Instead of 1 pound of sausage, I do 2. And instead of 1 hot and 1 regular, I do 2 hot sausages. 10 ounces of sharp cheddar cheese, 3 cups of bisquick mix, and a teaspoon of paprika. And there is a secret on how to get this all to incorporate so you can cook them in the oven and it makes them all good. So let me share that with you, and let's get to cooking some sausage balls. I have laid the sausage out so it has gotten warm to the touch, so it's easy to maneuver in my hands. And I need to put in 1 teaspoon of paprika, okay, 10 ounces of sharp shredded cheddar cheese, which I'm going to go ahead and pour that in next. And now the thing with this is you want to basically mush it in your hands and get it to blend into the sausage meat. And that looks pretty good. Everything is pretty well incorporated. I don't see a whole lot of bare just spots. So now it's time to add the last ingredient. Now the next thing I'm going to do is add in the bisquick. This is about 3 cups of bisquick mix. And what you do is basically the same thing that you did with the cheese. You sit there and you mash it until all of it is incorporated. And then I'll come back and I'll show you how I make my sausage balls, and we'll get them all in the oven and get them going, because you know they are so good. Now let me show you the little trick I do to try to make all of my sausage balls the same size. I use a tablespoon, and I just basically go in and grab a bunch, bring it into the tablespoon, make sure it's maybe a heaping tablespoon, and then roll it in my hands and then put it in the pan. And let me get all this done, and then whenever I get completely all the way done, we'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like before I put it in the oven. And I have all the sausage balls rolled and laid out on the pans. One thing I figured out over doing this over the past couple years is you need to have a little bit of room in between each of the sausage balls. That way they get a little bit of brown in between each whenever it cooks. I've got both plates kind of layered to where they're separated apart. And I'm going to put them in the oven at 350. So I'm going to go ahead and put them in for 15 minutes and see where they're at. And then we'll come back and check and see if they needed that additional 5 minutes. And it's been 20 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and take these out of the oven and let them cool off so we can go ahead and start eating some sausage balls. Here are the sausage balls already made. Don't worry if the bottoms get a little bit dunner than the tops, because that's fine. You don't want to overcook them. If you overcook them, they will be dry, and you want them nice and moist. And let's see if I can pull this one apart. See? It's nice and moist on the inside. It's not dry, and it's so good. A family favorite holiday treat I make every year for Christmas. You've got to try them if you haven't already. They're so good. And let's make one of our family's favorites, boiled cookies. A lot of people call them dookie wads. A lot of people call them peanut butter chocolate oatmeal cookies. It's whichever way you want to call them, they are good. And we're going to start with the ingredients. A stick of butter, 2 cups of sugar, 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder, a half cup of milk, and then the second phase, I'm going to be using 1 teaspoon of vanilla flavoring, 2.5 cups of raw oats, and 1/4 cup of peanut butter, and that is creamy peanut butter. The most important thing about these cookies is the order in which you put the second phase in. If you put it in incorrectly, it will not set up. I've learned that over the years. And now I've got it to where I can do it pretty good. So let's get going on heating up the pan and getting the butter and sugar and everything heated up. Let me go ahead and put in the first phase, which is the salted butter. The whole stick goes in there to melt. And the butter is just about completely melted. I don't want it to brown. So let me go ahead and add the sugar in there. I'm going to go ahead and add the cocoa in. And the cold milk. And get that stirred together. Now with this recipe, it's a timing issue, and then it's a placement issue of the second phase, where you put each of the items and when you put them in. The timing issue comes whenever this starts to bubble and boil. And I have got this on about a medium heat right now. I've got it on about a 6. And as you see, it's starting to heat up. It's starting to bubble a little bit, which is what you want, because it's going to go quick once it does start to bubble. Now, this is what you call a rolling boil. This is what you want. Whenever it starts to go to a rolling boil, then you need to start a timer for 1.5 minutes. So basically, kitchen timer, 90 seconds, and let it go. Just make sure you don't burn it. Like I said, I've got mine on 6, which is a medium heat, and it is doing a good rolling boil right now. And it needs to get hot enough to where whenever we add the rest of the ingredients, it cooks the oats, and that's what hardens it up basically. 90 seconds is almost up. I'm going to go ahead and pour the teaspoon of vanilla because it's about to go off. 1 teaspoon of vanilla going in, and you'll see it sizzle a little bit, and I go ahead and stir that real quick. Now the next thing is the oats. Pour them in quickly and get them moved around inside of the hot fluid. And the reason you do the oats before you do the peanut butter is because if you put the peanut butter in, it will adhere to the outside of the oats and will not let the hot fluid into the oats to cook it, and it will not set up correctly. I learned that over years of doing this. Okay, here we go. And I need to take this off the heat, or turn the heat off, that is, and add the peanut butter in right there. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and lift it off the heat, stir the peanut butter in, make sure it gets stirred. Make sure it gets stirred really well. And if you do it correctly, it won't take long to start to set up once you take it off the heat. And you can see it's already starting to firm up a little bit. I've gotten a layer of just aluminum foil laid out here, and I am going to place the cookies. I'm just using a gravy ladle of all things, but that seems to work best for my cookies, I think. Get a spoonful. You can make them as small or as large as you like, and then put them on the tin foil, and just keep doing this until all the cookies are on there and the cookies are completely laid out and ready to go. We got a counter full of cookies now. We've just got to let them cool and harden up, and whenever they harden, I'll show you, you'll be able to peel them off from the bottom of the aluminum foil. And this is how you know they're completely done. You lift up one side and the whole cookie comes up. That means they're hard enough that you can transfer them onto a plate, which I have right here, and display. Okay. And here is the whole plate of boiled cookies. This is one run, and it does quite a few cookies. I usually do 3 or 4 runs for Christmas, just because we eat a lot of them, and I do give a lot out as gifts or with gifts as goodies. So here is the boiled cookies, and then let me show you how I store them to keep them fresh and not sticking to each other. When I go to store the cookies, I usually use, believe it or not, a plastic shoebox. And I put a layer of waxed paper in the bottom, and then I put a layer of cookies. I try not to let them touch because they will stick together. And then I flip the layer over, just like that, and start the next layer in the dish. That way, none of the cookies are going to stick to each other. The plastic shoe boxes have a lid for them, and they will close. That way that cookies will not get dried out. And they usually hold about 2 runs of cookies. And then you just put the lid right on top. And these are airtight shoe containers. I think I got them at like Dollar General for like $4 or $5 for a bunch of them. And this is what I put all of my goodies in at Christmas. That way everything is in its own little container. You can see what it is. It transports easily from the kitchen counter to the bar to wherever. And people can just hop in, grab what they want, and then close it back up, and you know that it's going to be nice and airtight. But that's how I store my boiled cookies and my sausage balls that I made yesterday, and how I'm going to store the cookies I'm going to make tomorrow. So we'll see you back for the next phase of cookies. Let's get going on another holiday favorite. The Grandma Paul's Sandy Tarts, which we call Danish wedding cookies, is what we call it. What you're going to need is 2 sticks of butter. You're going to need 1/2 cup of confectioner sugar. You're going to need 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, and some chopped pecans. So we've got the 2 sticks of softened butter. I'm going to put in the 1/2 cup of confectioner sugar, and I've got plenty more to put on the outside of the cookies when we get done. And I'm going to go ahead and blend this together. And now it's looking pretty smooth. A little tip I can give you is if it gets stuck in your beaters, put it down in the bottom and turn it on a little bit higher, and just swing it off. That way you can get them cleaned out to some degree. Now the next thing I'm going to need is 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Alright. Now you are going to blend that in. And now it's time to add the 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour. And I'm going to be adding in the confectioner sugar or the powdered sugar, 1 3/4 cup. And I'm going to add it in bits, a couple different bits. Blend in between. Okay. And this is looking pretty good. It's loosened up quite a bit. And it's not going to be runny by no means, it's a cookie. Now, it's time to add 1 cup of chopped pecans. And now I am just basically going to fold it in to the cookie dough. And this may take just a dab to get it all folded in. You want to make sure that there are no pieces of cookie dough that don't have pecan in them. What I've done is I've gotten some flour on my hands so they can not be as sticky. I get about a spoonful of the cookie dough, and then I roll it. And now I make crescent shapes like that, and then put them over here on my parchment lined paper. And I do that for each one of the cookies. And here is what the cookies look like once I lay them out on the sheet before I put them in the oven. You're going to cook them at 270 degrees for 40 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and get these in the oven and cooking. 40 minutes later, I'll bring you back and show you how I put all the sugar on them. And these have been baking for 40 minutes, and they are done. You just gotta let them cool and they'll firm up. But you need to, before they get completely cooled off, run them through the confection sugar. So let me let this cool just a little bit until I can physically pop them off without them breaking. And then we'll get them through the sugar, and then they'll be done. And when the cookies get to where they're cool enough that you can handle them, and they don't break apart, you want to put them in the powdered sugar. Put them on bottom, on top. Don't press on them because they will fall apart at this point because they're still hot. And then put them in your lined container, just like I did with the boiled cookies yesterday. And I'm going to keep doing this with each of the cookies. And all of my cookies are safely stored away in the shoebox, like I showed you how I do my chocolate boiled cookies, with a lid on them. So they'll stay fresh, and we can see what's in it, and you can see how many, and somebody can get whatever they want out of here and then close it back up. This is my favorite holiday treat. I love them. They are a labor of love, but I love them so much. Wasn't those recipes amazing? Oh, and your family will love them when you make them. So definitely 3 things you should try this Christmas. If you haven't already subscribed, don't forget to push that button down below and subscribe so you don't miss any of the fun. And if you like this video, here's another video you might like to watch also. And until next week, have a great week.